Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome back to the British Accent Podcast. Today, we've got a really practical and exciting topic for you. English you'll hear when traveling abroad. Whether you're checking into a hotel, ordering food at a restaurant, or asking for directions in a new city, English is often the language people use to communicate. But here's the thing, it's not always the textbook English you studied.
And the good news is, once you get used to these patterns, it becomes much easier to understand. Today we'll go through some of the most common phrases and expressions you'll hear at airports, hotels, restaurants, shops, and taxis. That way, you won't just survive your trip, you'll actually feel confident and enjoy the experience more.
Exactly. For example, instead of, "Where is the nearest subway station?" someone might just say, "Hey, is there a subway around here?" Or instead of, "Would you like me to bring the menu?" a waiter might simply say, "Menu for you." These little shortcuts are the kind of English you'll hear most often when traveling.
Right, Emily. A lot of learners prepare for travel by memorizing phrases like, "Where is the station?" or "I would like a glass of water, please." And while those are correct, when you're actually out there in the real world, people speak quickly, they shorten words, and they use casual expressions. If you're not ready for that, it can feel a little overwhelming.
So grab a notebook, because we're about to give you some really useful examples that will make your next trip abroad so much smoother.
Let's start with the airport, since that's usually the first stop when you're traveling abroad. At check-in, you'll hear things like, "Can I see your passport?" or "Do you have any bags to check?" Very simple, but also very fast. And instead of, "Would you like a window or aisle seat?" they might just say, "Window or aisle."
Yes, and at security, you'll often hear instructions given in short commands like, "Shoes off," "Laptops out," or "Liquids in the tray." They don't usually use full sentences because they're repeating the same instructions all day long. So being prepared for that style of English really helps.
Then, when you're boarding the plane, listen out for phrases like, "Boarding group 3, passport ready," or "Have your ticket out." These are short and direct. And when you're actually on the plane, flight attendants might ask things like, "Chicken or pasta," or "Coffee, tea, juice." Really short and simple, not full sentences.
Now let's move to hotels, because this is another big part of travel. At the reception desk, you'll usually hear, "Checking in," or "Reservation under what name?" Notice how they often cut out little words that you'd normally expect. Instead of, "Do you have a reservation?" they might just say, "Reservation."
And when you're leaving, instead of, "Would you like to check out now?" you might hear, "Checking out." Or, "Anything from the minibar." They don't always speak in complete grammar structures because they know travelers just need the quick idea.
At restaurants, it's even more interesting. Instead of, "Would you like to look at the menu?" a server might simply ask, "You ready to order?" Or instead of, "Would you like something to drink?" you might hear, "Something to drink." And instead of, "How would you like your steak cooked?" they'll just say, "Rare, medium, or well done."
And of course, when you're in a taxi or rideshare, drivers usually keep it very short, too. They'll ask things like, "Where to?" or "Cash or card." Really minimal but very clear.
What's fascinating is that these short phrases might sound very casual, but they're universal. Whether you're in London, New York, or Sydney, travelers are likely to hear similar short English expressions.
So if you're preparing for a trip, don't just practice full textbook sentences. Train your ear for these short forms, because they'll make the difference between being confused and feeling confident.
Yes, shopping is another place where travelers hear a lot of quick English. In stores, instead of, "Can I help you with something today?" staff will often just say, "Need help?" or "Looking for something." It's very direct and sometimes even feels a little fast, but that's normal.
And at the cashier, you almost always hear, "Receipt in the bag," or "Do you need a bag?" Sometimes just, "bag." They shorten it because it's obvious what they're asking. And instead of, "Would you like to pay with cash or card?" you might hear, "Cash or card."
Street interactions are similar. If you stop someone to ask for directions, they might answer with short phrases like, 2 blocks down, turn left, or even just point and say, that way. They won't usually give you a full detailed sentence unless you ask for more.
And if you're buying something at a street market, the seller might say, $10, or 2 for 5, without adding anything else. It's short, but once you get used to it, it makes perfect sense.
Another important one is public transport. On buses or trains, you'll hear things like, next stop, tickets, please, or mind the gap. These are quick safety or travel instructions. You don't really need full sentences because they're designed to be understood quickly by lots of people.
Exactly. And when you ask a bus driver, instead of saying, does this bus go to the city center? You might hear, yeah, city center, or, no, transfer at the next stop. Very short, very practical.
I think what all of this shows is that when you're traveling abroad, you need to expect English to be fast, short, and sometimes even incomplete compared to textbook English. But the key is, you don't need to understand every word. You just need to catch the important ones.
Yeah, let's give some tips, because if learners know what to expect, they'll feel a lot more confident when they actually travel. One really useful tip is to practice listening to authentic conversations. That could be YouTube travel vlogs, street interviews, or even airport announcement recordings. The more you hear real-life English, the easier it is to catch those short, fast phrases.
Definitely. And I'd also suggest practicing roleplay. Even if you don't have a partner, you can do it alone. For example, pretend you're at a cafe. You can say out loud, "Can I have a coffee, please?" Then imagine the barista answering with, "For here or to go?" Or anything else. That way, when you hear it in real life, it won't surprise you.
Another great idea is to memorize some key travel phrases. Things like, where is the bus stop? How much is this? Can you speak slowly, please? They may seem simple, but these are the phrases you use over and over again.
Yes, and don't forget about body language. Sometimes, when you don't understand every word, gestures, facial expressions, and context help you figure it out. For example, if someone at a shop just says, bag, while holding one up, you don't really need more words. You know they're asking if you want a bag.
Exactly. And if you miss something, it's totally okay to ask, sorry, can you repeat that? Or, can you say it slowly? Native speakers are usually very understanding, especially with travelers.
That's true. In fact, sometimes when they realize you're not a native speaker, they'll switch to simpler English automatically. So the best thing you can do is stay calm, listen for the key words, and don't be afraid to ask again.
Let's do a little practice together with some dialogues that travelers might actually hear. Imagine you've just landed at the airport.
Okay, so you might hear an announcement like, "Attention, passengers of flight 302, baggage claim is in carousel number 5. That's a lot of words, but the key is, baggage claim, and carousel number 5. If you catch those, you're fine.
Right, and at immigration, the officer might ask, what's the purpose of your visit? They're not asking for a long story, you can just answer, tourism, or business. Simple and clear.
At a hotel check-in, the receptionist could say, "Can I see your passport, please?" Or, "Do you have a reservation?" Again, very short and standard phrases. Once you hear them once, you'll recognize them anywhere.
Same with taxis. The driver might say, where to? Instead of, where are you going? It's quick and casual, but it means the same thing.
And in restaurants, you'll often hear, "For here or to go?" Or, "Is that everything?" Those are phrases that textbooks don't always teach, but they come up all the time.
So the main strategy is to focus on keywords, not every single word. If you hear reservation, passport, or carousel, you already know what the conversation is about.
Exactly, and practicing these small dialogues ahead of time makes you much more confident when you actually travel.
Let's jump into a restaurant situation. The waiter might say, how many? Instead of, how many people are in your group? It's short, but all they want to know is the number of people.
Then after you sit down, they'll probably ask, "What can I get you?" Or, "Are you ready to order?" If you're not ready, you can just say, "Not yet, please." Super simple.
At the end, you'll hear, would you like the check? Or in British English, shall I bring the bill? Both mean the same thing, time to pay.
Now imagine you're shopping. A shop assistant might say, "Can I help you find something?" Or just, "Need help?" If you don't need help, the polite answer is, "I'm just looking, thank you."
And if you're lost and need directions, you might stop someone and ask, "Excuse me, where is the nearest bus stop?" And the person might reply quickly with something like, "Go straight, then turn left."
Those short, direct phrases are very common in everyday travel English. They might sound fast, but once you know the patterns, you'll start recognizing them easily.
Yeah, and practicing listening to these real phrases makes you ready for the rhythm and speed of native speakers, which is so different from the slow, clear audio you often get in textbooks.
Yes, let's keep going with the airport boarding example. When it's time to board the plane, you might hear, "We're now boarding rows 20 to 30, or "now boarding group B." It's basically calling people in order. If you're not sure when it's your turn, you can show your boarding pass and ask, "Is it time for me to board?"
At a hotel, if something goes wrong, like the air conditioning doesn't work, you can say, "Excuse me, the air conditioner in my room isn't working. Could you please check it?" Hotel staff are used to these requests, so don't feel shy about asking.
And if you're on a guided tour, you might hear the guide say things like, "Please stay with the group," or "We'll meet back here in 20 minutes. Very practical instructions that help you follow along.
So, whether you're at the airport, in a hotel, or on a tour, these little travel English phrases make the experience so much smoother.
Exactly. The more familiar you are with them, the more confident and relaxed you'll feel when traveling.
Thanks for joining us today on this episode about English you'll hear when traveling abroad.